From the Oklahoman newsroom, this is an OU update. I'm Jenny Carlson here in studio. Well, I guess it's maybe a Dallas Renegades update as well. Ryan Aber joins us on the phone after attending the first Dallas Renegades game, the new reimagined XFL. Ryan, and of course that was because former legendary coach of the Sooners, Bob Stoops, now leading the Renegades. I saw that familiar visor. I saw the familiar stance on the sideline. Was it the Bob Stoops we remember from his OU days?
Yeah, during the game, a lot of it was exactly the same. Now, the one thing you didn't see was the same way that he corrected players at OU when things didn't go right. And obviously you expect that. It's a different different kind of person that you're dealing with in professional football versus college. So he said you don't have to correct as much, but still it looked a lot like the Bob Stoops that we saw just a few years ago when he was coaching at Oklahoma.
One thing that wasn't as familiar to people that might have been watching was the result. Renegades lose to the team from St. Louis, the Battlehawks. And I wonder, Ryan, sort of how you talk about the fact that Bob Stoops wasn't quite as in your face maybe as he was during his Oklahoma days. How was his reaction after the game? How did he sort of take that opening day loss?
Oh, he wasn't too happy about it. Now, he said there's some things that mitigated the fact that St. Louis isn't a division rival, which wasn't something that he had to really worry about at OU since every game was so magnified in importance. And I think that takes a little bit of an adjustment for him. But he certainly wasn't used to the lack of offense that we saw last night. I believe, if I'm counting right, the last time that a Bob Stoops coach team did not score a touchdown was 2009 when Oklahoma fell 10-3 to Nebraska. So it's been quite a while, and the Renegades didn't have a touchdown yesterday. I think everybody expected this league to be high-flying offense and expected Dallas to be among the best offenses in the league. They didn't have Landry Jones last night. It wouldn't surprise me if he's the starting quarterback next week when the Renegade season continues, but certainly a different kind of game for a Bob Stoops coach team.
Well, you mentioned Landry Jones, likely to be Bob Stoops' starting quarterback come week 2. Had an injury during preseason camp that kept him out of this opener, but he wasn't the only former Sooner on the field for the Renegades or in uniform for the Renegades or even there. I mean, this game kind of had a crimson and cream feel to it, Ryan.
Yeah, it really did. When you think about the first pass was thrown, it wasn't completed to Jeff Badette, who committed to Bob Stoops at Oklahoma. Bob Stoops wound up resigning before Badette played a game for the Sooners. He wound up playing for Lincoln Riley. But Frank Alexander had the Renegades' first sack. Frank Alexander was a star at Oklahoma before moving on to the NFL at Oklahoma under Bob Stoops before moving on to the NFL. And then the first touchdown on the other side is scored by Keith Ford, a guy who had a productive season at OU before sort of seeing the writing on the wall with Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon and transferring to Texas A&M, where he had a very productive end of his college career. And that St. Louis was coached by Jonathan Hayes, and they had a couple of former Sooners on their staff. Bob Stoops' staff has a couple former Sooners as well. So, yeah, there's a heavy OU feel yesterday, and you got the sense of it really from right when the teams walked on the field, because when Landry Jones walked out of the dugout, basically, there at the reconfigured Globe Life Park, the first word I heard from the crowd was boomer. There was some OU fans that were there and pumped up to see Landry Jones back on the field.
Hey, Ryan, before we let you go, just your overall sense of the football that you saw on Sunday down there in Arlington. I mean, some changes in the rules, so some things looked a little different, felt a little different, but what did you think of the overall quality of the game and just what you experienced overall?
Well, you can't go into this thing expecting to see what you see on Sundays in the fall. This isn't the NFL. These aren't, by and large, NFL caliber players. But I thought it was solid. I thought it was better than what we saw a couple years ago, or last year, I guess, with the AAFL. I like the rules changes, especially the kickoff rule, which Bob Stoops said he wasn't sure of when he got explained to him, but when he saw it in action, was really a fan of. I think that's one innovation that you could see transfer over to the NFL and college football. We saw those things from the first iteration of the XFL, some of the innovations that they had, especially with the TV presentation that wound up bleeding over into NFL and college football. I think there'll be some things from this, but the biggest thing for them is going to be sustaining the interest. There was a high level of interest this weekend as the XFL got started. There was a high level of interest with the AFL, but that quickly fell apart. The XFL has to figure out a way to sustain that beyond just a week or two.
Well, we'll see if the Dallas Renegades continue to get interest. They play next Sunday at Los Angeles. That's a 2 o'clock start, and the game will be on ABC if you want to check out Bob Stoops in week 2, and probably Landry Jones quarterbacking the Renegades. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at Oklahoman.com and every day in the Oklahoman.